U.S. President Donald Trump pledged to make the world a safer place. But has he? From conflict in the Middle East to the Ukraine-Russia war, the fighting is only escalating and expanding. Israel took Iran by surprise, launching overnight aerial strikes targeting Iranian nuclear program and eliminating top Iranian commanders. Is peacemaker Trump failing again? Ex-U.S. NSA Ambassador John Bolton joins us on the broadcast. Mr. Bolton, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for your time. Now, Israel has carried out preemptive strikes. Israel says that it has an obligation to act in defense of its citizens. Do you see it as Israel's right to retaliate?
Well, absolutely. You know, the Iranian war against Israel really began on October the 7th, 2023, when Hamas attacked into the Gaza Strip. And we've seen a regional war playing out since then. I think Israel waited a long, long time before taking this step. And I believe that they took it now because they really believed Iran was on the verge of acquiring a nuclear capability. The Iranian leadership had vowed death to the little Satan, as they call Israel. With that threat rising and the chance that Iran would disperse its nuclear facilities to make them harder to attack, Israel's decided to strike. So I think this really is a legitimate strike, and we'll see what the Iranian response is now. And I'm sure there will be one.
Absolutely. Now, you know, if the situation escalates, Mr. Bolton, what, according to you, are going to be the repercussions globally? Also, there are a lot of people who are saying, is this the beginning of World War III? How do you see that statement?
I don't think it's anything close to that. Look, right now, it's a war between Iran and its terrorist proxies and Israel. Israel has responded in that war. I'm sure Iran will retaliate against Israel. The question is, will they strike anybody else? Will they be foolish enough to attack American deployed forces in the region, which would immediately bring the U.S. into a war? It would be the end of the regime with absolute certainty. I don't think they'll do that. Will Iran retaliate against the Gulf Arab states? Will they try to attack their oil infrastructure? Again, that's possible. But Iran is having trouble dealing with Israel. Do they need 6 more enemies in the form of the Gulf Cooperation Council? Do they need a 7th enemy in the form of the United States? This is a very strange medieval regime run by religious fanatics, so I don't rule anything out. But I think even this regime in Tehran knows that it's existential to them if they go after anybody other than Israel.
Mr. Bolton, how do you see Donald Trump's assertion that Iran cannot have a nuclear bomb and that U.S. is looking to get back at the negotiating table? Is that feasible now, getting back to the negotiating table, renewed negotiations, especially after the military strike?
I don't think there's any chance of serious negotiations resuming, but I don't think the negotiations that have been going on the past several months really had any chance. The Iranians have continued to insist they have to have a uranium enrichment capability in country. That is unacceptable, should be unacceptable to the U.S., Israel, and others. It was the fatal mistake of Obama's 2015 nuclear deal to concede that Iran could do enrichment in country. So I don't think negotiations are in prospect. And my criticism of the Trump administration is that we're standing back and letting Israel do this alone. I think we should be helping them out because the Iranian nuclear capacity is a threat to us and the whole world.
Well, Donald Trump claimed that he can end the hottest of conflicts. Do you see that crumbling now? Would you say that this is a case of tough diplomacy failing?
Well, you know, we have a saying in the United States, especially in Texas, when somebody is all hat and no cattle. And I think that sums up Donald Trump on his negotiations in the Ukraine-Russia war and in the Israel-Iranian conflict. I think the better course here for the security of all of our allies in the Middle East, our own forces and all of our interests, is to work with them against the regime in Iran. That's the principal threat to peace and security in the Middle East.
You know, you earlier, while talking about Donald Trump's foreign policies or the diplomacy that he practices, you said that it is driven by personal relationships rather than strategic planning. Has that evolved in Donald Trump administration 2.0, or, you know, the series of erratic decisions continues?
No, I don't think he has any strategic vision at all. He's now kind of caught because the Iranians didn't give him any negotiating room. He doesn't particularly like Bibi Netanyahu, but at least in the first 24 hours, the Israeli military strikes seem to have been successful. So I think he's trying to have the best of both worlds. He did say in the United States, reported on media here just a few minutes ago, that the U.S. supported Israel. That's something the administration had not said until that statement. We'll see how that plays out in the next hours. I think Israel in Congress and across the U.S. will demonstrate very strong support.
How do you view what's transpiring, in terms of Field Marshal Asim Munir being invited by U.S., General Kurilla describing Pakistan as a phenomenal partner? Has America forgotten that Pakistan is the same country where Osama bin Laden was found and later eliminated?
Yeah, look, I'd give General Kurilla a little space there. It's in Pakistan for U.S. purposes and is in the military central command zone as opposed to India, which is in the Indo-Pacific command. The U.S. is legitimate in trying to work with the government of Pakistan to end its support for terrorism, which in the long term is not good for the Pakistani people. It's obviously a direct threat to India. We just saw that a few months ago, but it's a threat more widely as well, given the Taliban in Afghanistan. I want to move Pakistan away from China. I mean, I'd be very blunt to it with the Pakistanis themselves. It's not in their interest to get brought into a Chinese zone of influence. It's not in the U.S. interest. It's not in India's interest either.
So then how do you strike a balance? Because on one hand, Donald Trump administration says that they are with India in this fight against terrorism. And then the growing bonhomie between Trump and the Pakistan administration. How do you strike a balance? It's a contradictory position, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, the real answer to your question is how do you strike a balance is with great difficulty. But I do think it is in American interest, certainly, to see what we can do, because we need a Pakistani government that is not supporting terrorism, not against India, not in Afghanistan, not against anybody anywhere else, number one. And number two, a Pakistan that doesn't come under Chinese domination, which obviously is of importance to India as well. You don't want a Chinese surrogate on your western border.
Now, in terms of Pakistan and America's relationship, there was a candid confession that came in from the Defense Minister of Pakistan, Khwaja Asif, when he said, for decades we've been doing the dirty work for US and UK. Is that what it means when you talk about cooperating and working closely with the US when it comes to countering terrorism?
Well, I think that's a pretty strange way to put it, to say the least. We depended on Pakistan during the years of the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan, that's for sure, to support the Mujahideen against the Soviet-backed regime and against the Soviet forces. We obviously had to deal with the Pakistanis in the wake of 9/11, and I think with President Musharraf, I think we did deal well. I think that was the period in the Bush administration when we did break the hyphenated relationship, when we could deal with Pakistan and India on their own merits, in their own rights. It's gotten more difficult with Pakistan since then, there's no doubt about it. But frankly, Pakistan's interest lies in being free of terrorism. It's not gaining anything by supporting terrorists in Kashmir or anywhere else. And it's not gaining anything by supporting the Taliban or Haqqani network or anything else inside Afghanistan. I just wish there were a better way to persuade Pakistani civilian and military leadership that this is simply not in their long-term interest.
Absolutely. Now, Mr. Bolton, I would want to take your, responses and views on what Donald Trump claimed when the ceasefire understanding happened between India and Pakistan. He was the first one to put out that tweet saying that he has worked it out. Later, we saw a climb down when he said, he only helped. Do you think there's any merit to that claim that has been made, that he mediated the ceasefire?
No, I mean, this is classic Donald Trump. It wasn't intended to put India in the shade or anything like that. That's the way he treats everybody, that he's always at the center of the action. I mean, I know from my own personal experience in 2019 when India suffered a similar terrorist attack, We worked very closely with the Indian government, and it was resolved. But the decisions that were made then, and I believe a couple months ago, were made by the Indian government, and of course by the Pakistani government. These were not U.S. decisions.
Absolutely. Israel has launched these preemptive strikes and called it Operation Rising Lion. It also reminds us about Operation Sindoor. Since we're talking about a country's right to retaliate, do you think India should have been more aggressive in terms of dismantling the terror infrastructure in Pakistan completely?
Well, I think that may have been a bit too far at this point. I think India, like Israel, like the United States, needs to make the case in some detail as to exactly what the terrorist threat is and what it's doing to protect itself against the terrorist threat, including eliminating that threat when need be. That's what Israel is doing to Hamas in the Gaza Strip as we speak. And I think unless you've got that ground prepared, you expose yourself to criticism that really is obviously not very helpful. So to me, this is something that in the coming years, that India should be building the case on a daily basis about what the terrorist threat is. So if it does tragically have to take retaliatory action later, it's made it clear to everybody it's fully justified, as I think it would be.
Absolutely. Well, when we carried out Operation Sindoor, India made it absolutely clear that we were only targeting the terror infrastructure. We were not attacking or engaging with the Pakistani military. And we have been suffering from cross-border terrorism that emanates from the Pakistani soil for decades together.
Right, and it's unacceptable. And India has been the victim of terrorism in several other respects, including obviously the infamous attack on the Parliament building, which we all remember. So I really think in the United States there's considerable support for what India has done, and not extensive criticism.
All right, Mr. Bolton, thank you very much for giving us your time. Thank you for speaking with us.
Thanks for having me.